Hello, everyone, and we're live. Welcome to our virtual presentation of She's Too Pretty to Burn. We're here with author Wendy Heard and moderator Aiden Thomas. Before we begin, if you would like to ask questions, just use the Ask a Question button at the very bottom of the page. We'll be taking questions during the last 15 minutes of the event. So you can just submit your questions that way. You can also vote for any questions you'd like, and they'll make their way to the very top of the list. Also, please consider supporting our bookstore tonight by purchasing a copy of tonight's featured book. You can just click on the green purchase button directly below the viewer screen, and it will take you to our website where you can complete your purchase. Also, Vroman's Bookstore is the oldest independent bookstore in Southern California. We are 127 years old, and it's thanks to patrons like yourselves who keep our business running. So every bit of support goes a long way, and we appreciate any kind of support that you can give us right now. And with that said, let me introduce our guests, and then we can get started. So Wendy Heard is the author of 2 adult thrillers, The Kill Club and Hunting Annabelle. She's Too Pretty to Burn, which Kirkus called a wild and satisfying romp in a starred review, marks her YA debut. She is a member of Sisters in Crime, International Thriller Writers, and Mystery Writers of America, and is a contributor at crimereads.com and Writer's Digest. And joining her tonight is Aiden Thomas, the New York Times bestselling author of The Cemetery Boys. As a queer, trans, Latinx, Aiden advocates strongly for diverse representation in all media. So with that said, give a warm virtual applause for our guests, and I'm going to turn off my camera and we can get started. Great.
Hello, this is so exciting. Wendy, congrats on your new book being out. Are you thrilled and excited? How does it feel to be in the YA sphere as opposed to the adult sphere? Is it any different?
It is very different, but first of all, congrats to you because you just hit list for your second book in a row. I'm so excited for you. Congratulations.
It's very exciting. Thank you so much.
Boston, the Neverwoods is as great as Cemetery Boys was, and I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very exciting and unexpected, but here we are.
And also, hello to Aiden's pets in the background, running around.
Yeah, having a good time. I think I just got a package dropped off. He's like, oh my God.
It's like it's happening again.
Yeah.
But yeah, YA is different. Everyone's been very enthusiastic and welcoming, and it's been really fun getting to know everybody in that sector, that industry sector.
Right.
I don't know.
I feel like we're a bit more chaotic than the adult realm, but I think there's a certain charm to that. I feel like it's taken forever for She's Too Pretty to Burn to come out, because I got to read an early, the ARC version, and I was so obsessed with it and I was so excited. And I feel like you and I were talking when we first met, and I think we were still getting to know each other, and we were talking about our upcoming projects that hadn't been announced or released yet. And I told you about Cemetery Boys before I even started writing it, and then you told me about She's Too Pretty to Burn. So it feels very beautiful that we're here and it's
I
all
know.
come together.
Well, so I remember specifically where I was in a work meeting, and I just remember exactly where I was sitting in this room because you had already sold Lost in the Neverwoods, and Cemetery Boys was your option book,
Yes.
right? So you were pitching your book too, and kind of just coming to your final, I guess concept of what it was going to be with your team. And when you told to me, it struck me so much, and I was so excited about it because I'm from LA, and everyone down here is huge fan of Dia de Muertos, and we're just oh my God, this is so exciting. And I remember exactly where I was when you told me about that book. So it's kind of funny.
It's so wild. Yeah, it's really funny, and how we bonded over the California connection. And yeah, even though we have a blood feud because I'm from NorCal and you're from SoCal, but it's been really trying on our relationship personally for me. But
it has for me too, because I was always I can't be friends with anyone who owns a North Face vest. And
I literally have one in my closet. I literally have one.
I don't even know where you all buy them. Is there? Do they just have them at the Target
North
up
Face.
there? Is there a store
North
for
Face
this?
stores. Yes,
whole
I'm like
store?
REI. Yeah, there's a whole like North Face store that I go to like every 6 months to like hit the different seasons, you know.
Oh, the different seasons. Which
yeah. Cold and like hot.
Is there a quilted pant for the winter to go with?
That's so rude. So rude.
It's okay. I mean, I feel like there is a funny thing with Northern California and Southern California, like especially LA. People have a lot of hate for LA, and LA people don't get it because if you ask someone from LA, like, what do you think of San Francisco? We'll be like, oh, it's beautiful, it's wonderful. What do you think of Oakland? Oh, really cool. I used to go to a great place up there. What do you think about Portland? A great city. Ask anyone what they think of LA. It's a crap fest.
It's the worst place I've ever been to.
Worst place on earth. Like, can't believe people live there. I would never live there. You're like, okay, well, no one asked you to. So what is that?
I love it.
So funny.
I don't know. It's a weird thing.
But like the funny thing is that my dad lives in the East Bay, and I actually have spent many a summer in Oakland where you grew up. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very cool and very exciting. And I just feel like we got to connect over that, and I got to read an early copy of She's Too Pretty to Burn. And immediately when you told me, you're like, oh, it's a Dorian Gray reimagining, I was like, shut up. Tell me more. I need to know everything, because I obviously love reimaginings with Lost in the Neverwoods. But was there like a specific, like, how did this idea come to your mind specifically around picking like a retelling to kind of play with? Like, what was that inspiration? And were there like other stories, or like was it always it's going to be Dorian Gray?
No, it was always just going to be Dorian Gray, but I've always wanted to do retellings. I actually have a couple other ones in my queue that I want to do. I like reimaginings, especially through like a different lens. Or Dorian Gray's a really satisfying one to reimagine with girls as protagonists, not just women, but girls, because I feel like Oscar Wilde is so like mean to women and girls in his book. He says really mean things, like women are mostly decorative and they're silly. They don't have anything important to say. And so I found it sort of satisfying to reimagine the story through the lens of teenage girls, because I feel like that's a demographic that, you know, the things that teenage girls like, people are pretty crappy about. You know, if teenage girls like Taylor Swift, we have to crap on it. Whatever they like, we have to crap on it and make it silly and look down on it. So I found it sort of satisfying to reimagine that story through that lens, but also like interesting themes of vanity and stuff like that. Like teenage girls' lives are so fraught with this issue of like how you are perceived and how you perceive yourself. Like being a person in the world becomes so fraught when you hit like age 14 or whatever that age is for, you know, for each person.
Yeah. And you even incorporate like social media into this, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know. I actually have always had like a real I hate getting my picture taken. I really hate it. And you know, I've always thought it would be interesting to explore like the idea of consent through photography, and like what it means to have your picture taken and what it means to have it be shared, and like maybe explore the power of photography through that. So it's kind of interesting to do that.
Yeah, which again, I love so much about this. And it's one of my favorite antagonists, but I don't think we can talk about that because of spoilers. But I'm just putting that out there for everyone who's listening. If you haven't read it yet, it has a really cool.
Don't you like a good antagonist though? A good villain, right?
I do. They're my favorite. Like good villains, like totally make or break a story. And I think the way that you use villainry in She's Too Pretty to Burn is really. It's so insidious in how it acts, and I could even say that there's more than just like the main like villain of the antagonist, but you have all these other like outside forces that are kind of pressing upon these two girls as well, which is really cool. Excuse me. So what was it like taking? So you have this Dorian Gray retelling, but it's also a thriller. So what was it like, kind of blending those two worlds together, and like what like sparked your interest in that?
Well, you did that with Lost in the Neverwoods too, right? Like you have Peter Pan, which it's not originally a Disney story, but we all think of the Disney version, right? And then you're making it like a mystery thriller. You've got this like atmospheric, woodsy setting, and you're just kind of like, I don't know, there's something really compelling about that. I think our ideas of plot have evolved, and it's really interesting to take something that by nature is a classic, so it's like precious, and then it's like turn it into something darker and like plottier, and then it's almost like taking the idea but then like changing the plot a little bit to make it yours. I don't know. Yeah.
I think what's kind of fun about it is that Portrait of Dorian Gray is already pretty like dark to begin with, but it's kind of picking out your favorite dark parts and then kind of turning that into what the story is now. And that's a similar thing that I did with Lost in the Neverwoods, is like, oh, it's a Peter Pan reimagining. So everyone's like, oh my God, pixie dust and like mermaid and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but also like I'm pulling out those really dark, like deep dives in the original canon, because like that's what I thought was interesting, and turning it into this kind of twisty thriller with like atmospheric setting. Because like for my book, being like this dark and creepy story, I was like, well, it needs to be set in the Pacific Northwest, where you have all these really like creepy and shadowy woods. But then for She's Too Pretty to Burn, so tell me why you picked that setting specifically.
I really like the combination of like bright sun, palm trees, like sun beating down, and then like scary, dark things happening in that setting. Like I have a scene I'm writing right now in this book I'm working on right now where it's like Las Vegas is the background. I just like that. I really like those like bright, flashy settings. So it seems like all should be exciting and happy. And I think in Southern California, you grew up in that setting, and especially in LA, there are so many like pictures you can take in LA where it's like this palm tree, blue skies, the breeze is, idyllic, but then you have like a homeless encampment and like people are struggling, and you've got like people literally walking barefoot with no just like kind of trying to build themselves a little corner of the world. And so I think when you grow up in that setting, you just kind of like, I don't know, I think that's what kind of makes me want to write that combination.
Yeah, and what I really liked about it specifically, like Los Angeles, and like how everything in pictures is so beautiful, but then like behind it and what's actually going on, the dilapidated buildings that you like cropped out of your photo and stuff like that speaks volumes. So that was something that was really cool for me to like see that reflected in the plot of the story.
I had also wanted to write like there's two main characters, and one of them is middle class and one of them is quite poor, and I just like writing Southern California settings like that because I just find it's a piece of Southern California that's most of Southern California geographically, but it's like I feel like it's not really written about that much, or you know what I mean, it's not, the setting isn't usually that. So
And so when you were, I'm just interested, so from switching from adult to YA, how do you, if you were to write this story but set as an adult story, do you have any like idea of what that would look like what changes you would have made, and like how did you even make that decision to come over to make the story be YA when you were already so grounded and successful in your really incredible adult thrillers?
Oh, thank you. I mean,
I love those books.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like this one needed to be YA. I don't know how to explain it. It's like it needed like the kind of relationship they have felt just very YA to me, and I didn't want to have to age that up and make it like adults, meeting each other reasonably, and like, or you know what I mean? Like I felt like they needed to have that, teenage thing that I remember so well. And then also I just think like the themes of there's like this moment in the main character Mick's life where suddenly everybody wants to photograph her. And she's an athlete, like this isn't her thing. She's actually really afraid of it. But then her body becomes such that she goes from girl to young woman. And all of a sudden she's aged just to that sweet spot that we all remember, that teenage moment when suddenly it becomes all about like, what do you look like as like your first bloom of womanhood or some horrible thing that now suddenly it's very intrusive and everybody wants like a piece of it, and it's almost like she owes that to everybody. And people keep saying things to her like, why don't you show your legs? It's such a waste, and stuff like that. And I really wanted to kind of explore that because and so I think it's actually darker because it's YA, because it's that moment for her than it would be for like a 30-year-old woman.
Totally. Yeah, I completely agree. And kind of thinking about craft choices, how do you in general go about plotting your books? Because I know you and I have very different ways of doing it. Because for me personally, I plot everything to death. Like I'm turning in a book tonight, like in hopefully a couple hours. And my outline, I checked it. I was like, okay, I have to like see how long my outline is so I can tell Wendy. And it's 52 pages right now.
I was gonna guess 80. I was like, it's gonna be horrible.
The rom-com that I wrote over quarantine, not break.
You mean a break? School. The break we took from being humans, the break we took from personal hygiene,
from society. Yeah, that one. First of all, it's way too long, but the outline was on 102 pages long. So I plot everything down to the last minute. Did I stick to it? Yeah, absolutely.
You do.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a friend who does what she calls a skeleton draft or a zero draft. And so I think she would consider your outline your zero draft.
That's what my friends keep telling me. They're like, that's a zero draft, Aiden. I'm like, well, I don't know what that is, so I'm calling it an outline. So are your outlines that long?
So I get really overwhelmed, and I tend to feel like, okay, so I do Save the Cat, like beat sheet. Like I have like the beginning, I love Save the Cat. There's a new one. Save the Cat Writes a TV show. My friend Lane told me it's really good. And there's Save the Cat Writes a young adult book coming out.
I know, and I got so excited because I'm such a
thank
nerd.
You, please
for
come
plotting.
Save us.
Yeah.
But like I feel like I'll know the main beats. Like I'll have a synopsis that I wrote for myself that's like a few pages long, like a normal person. And then I'll I have my beat, like my basic beat sheet, but then I have to I don't scene plan. I scene plan for like the first quarter of the book, like the act 1, I'll scene plan. Then I'll go stop at the break into 2 and I'll evaluate, and then I'll scene plan from there to the midpoint. And then I'll stop in the midpoint and then I'll scene plan till the next. So I do it in quarters so I don't get overwhelmed, because it all ends up changing. I'm sort of amazed that it doesn't end up changing for you, because it changes.
I think for me, it's interesting how we're kind of opposites in this, and that I can get lost. What's the saying? Something lost in the trees. Anyways,
forest for the trees. Forest for the trees. Something about that.
I get so distracted by this one tree that's gonna be a paragraph long that I sit there and I think about it for 3 hours.
Yes.
That I literally cannot just be a pantser. Pantsers are such feral, magical creatures to me in my mind. But yeah, I literally couldn't do it. I would just get distracted, and it would take me years to get anything written. So
yeah, same.
And we've talked about this before, but I wrote Cemetery Boys in 6 weeks, and the only way I was able to do that is because I had a really thorough plot outline before I started writing it, and that meant that I had already figured out everything. So Aiden wouldn't get lost and confused like Aiden does. Aiden just had to write exactly what was on that paper. And follow it.
Here's a question. Do you go in though feeling like you know your characters really well?
Oh no, never.
Because I'm just wondering.
The only character I was ever familiar with before I started writing the book was Julian, because he's been in my brain for years.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's interesting because reading the first draft of a book that I write, the character, I'm not quite sure who this is, and then kind of by the end of the first draft, I've figured it out. So for me,
that's how I do it too.
Yeah, those drafts are kind of improving upon and building upon that character. My cat's gonna come say hello.
She's so cute. So precious. Feed her.
She gets fed all the time.
I'm always telling you, feed your cat.
Because she's always demanding to be fed.
Mm-hmm.
And so for you, do you know your characters? Do you feel like you know them really well before you start?
like you said, sometimes there's like one character, like for Pretty to Burn, Veronica was like right away. Like I felt like I knew Veronica from the first page. I don't know why. She just had like a voice that felt very like, you know what I mean? Sometimes it's just like that. But then like the rest of them, no. Like Mick especially, it took forever. Mick was so hard. Like I sort of like second, third draft before I felt like I was getting Mick's. And I would have to tell myself in each scene, go in there and try to think, how is Mick feeling? And like I'd have to force myself to even list things she's feeling. Like she feels like overwhelmed, she feels frustrated, she feels this, that, because I had such a hard time like pinning her voice down. Do you ever have stuff like that?
All the time. And then what's really hard about that is like once you figure out like, okay, she's feeling tired and frustrated, you then have to figure out how to translate that into something that sounds pretty, you know?
And my editor says I'm not allowed to list emotions. I'm not allowed to say I feel angry, scared. And I'm like, well, that's how she feels. So that's what I'm just gonna. And they said I'm supposed to like write it like an author and not like just list them.
Honestly, it's unfair is what it is.
It's unfair. I feel angry, scared, and hopeless at the beginning of the scene. I just like tell you and then just move on.
I don't know what's wrong with that.
I don't either. I don't know. They're so picky.
Honestly.
Yeah. So, okay. So it's interesting though, because I kind of thought that your trick for writing those outlines was like that you knew the characters really well. And so you could write an outline knowing what they would do. And you didn't have to like reevaluate along the way. I'm kind of amazed now, sort of in awe.
I don't have an answer. Yeah, it definitely takes me a while. And for some reason, my main characters are always, and it sounds like maybe you feel that way too, are always the hardest to like get into the head of for some reason. Yeah. The easiest characters for me to write are always the like best friend character. I don't know why. I think it's because I can just like throw in all these like really special tidbits because you kind of only get like a crash course in who they are. And love interests are really easy for me too because I'm like, well, like I just get to write about everything that's like so like romantic about them or whatever. But then it's the main character who I'm supposed to be in the head of the entire story, and I'm like, tell me what's going on because I can't figure it out.
Yes, I'm like, talk to me. I can't. Yeah, I don't understand. Yeah. I always have a really easy time with the villains.
I have a really hard time with villains.
Really?
You're incredible at villains, so you need to like teach me how to do it.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just a villain inside. I don't think so. You know me. I can't even eat a chicken. So I don't know. But yeah, I love writing the villains. I don't know why, but maybe it's the same thing where, you know, you're not giving them the full characterization. That's probably why it's easier. With main character, you have to be like in their skin, you know, whereas like with a villain or a love interest, you're kind of seeing them from a third perspective. So maybe that's why. True. Yeah. You don't have to like feel all their feelings torturously. Yeah. One thing that I remember from writing YA, I don't know if you agree with this, but like I heard from people a lot, like make sure to pull the emotions front and center. Make sure you like make the scenes like there's more emotion on the page in YA than in adult. And I found that kind of interesting.
Yeah, and I think that has to do with just like teenagers feel emotions very strongly and like consumingly, really. Whereas adults, maybe it's not as intense. And so I think, yeah, that's kind of like the part that young readers are going to like really be drawn to and kind of see themselves reflected and be like, oh yeah, I can remember times where I felt that way or whatever. So yeah, it's definitely much more of like emotional arc heavy. Definitely.
Do you think you'll ever write adult?
I get asked that question a lot, and my answer is that I don't know if I'm mature enough to write adult because I don't feel like an adult yet myself. Yeah, I don't feel very adulty. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that, but new adult, yes, because like that's what I'm most can easily relate to. I wrote the rom-com that I was talking about is new adult. It's a set in college. The main character's first year of college. So new adult, yeah, but I don't know about YA.
Yeah.
What do you have any stories that are coming down the pipeline that you can maybe tease us about?
Oh, we should talk about our next ones because we both have announcements on our next ones. We can actually talk about them.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have another YA thriller coming out in summer of 2022. That one is called Dead End Girls, and it's about a girl who it's about I'm actually kind of like nervous about this main character because this is the first time I'm writing a main character who's a girl who is like angry, like seethingly, quietly, all the time, bitter and angry. I try to usually like soften the edges of that or like, but on this character, I really don't want to. Like, she's 2 years into this plan to fake her own death, and she's doing it for revenge because she hates her family. They're just like an awful family. And she wants to fake her own death and leave them to suffer in her wake. And she has this like life planned for herself.
I am so excited for that book. If it's anywhere as good as She's Too Pretty to Burn, it's going to blow my mind. And I am absolutely thrilled. And what's the name of that one again?
Dead End Girls.
Dead End Girls.
Yeah.
Wendy Heard. Go add it on Goodreads. Oh my gosh.
What about your next one? I think you have two coming. What's your next?
I do. So what I have coming out next is a duology, which is funny because I said I would never write a series ever in my life, and then I pitched the story to my editor. And she was like, "Aiden, this."
You did it.
Yeah. Well, I pitched it as like a single story, and the editor was like, "Aiden, this is not one book. Like, what are you thinking?" And I was like, "It could be if we just rushed the ending."
Like, sounds great.
Yeah, so it's a duology, and I pitched it as Percy Jackson meets the Hunger Games. So it's demigods in a competition of life and death. And I have the first draft due today, so that's exciting. And then,
are you done with it?
I'm just doing like my last read through to make sure I didn't miss anything like glaring.
I was really hoping you were going to say no.
Like, no, I finished writing it last night, which I don't know if that's much better, but but I did finish it before today, so that's something.
Okay, it doesn't matter as long as it's before the deadline. Yeah, that's all that matters.
Exactly. So that one's coming out in fall 22. And then fall 23 for the second one. And then my third book that I sold all three of them at the same time, is coming out in fall 2024. And that one is pitched as Gay Titanic in Space. And I am very excited for that one.
I was at your event when you said the words. It was like, was this an event? I think it was a launch event for Cemetery Boys.
It was the launch event for Cemetery Boys.
Okay, and so I think you had Fierce Reads or Macmillan was like on the event hosting it or something, and they saw. So you said something like, "I do have this idea for like Gay Titanic in Space," and the chat just like exploded with people being like, "Gay Titanic in Space!" Like, I will buy 12, and it was so funny because I felt like everybody was like, "Okay, this is what we're gonna do, Gay Titanic in Space." Like, it was really cool.
Yeah, it was super wild. And then my editor actually, this is how Gay Titanic is now like gonna be a book, is because I was like, "Oh, I have this idea." And then my editor messaged me and was like, "Aiden, if you want to write that book, we should sell that book." So that it's actually because of that launch event and the chat like being so excited about it that was one that I pitched to them. It's so funny.
That was really funny. I mean, to be clear, I need Gay Titanic in Space. Like, I need it. I need it.
Yeah,
sci-fi. So, like, it's not going to be real different to write sci-fi? Like, we have to do a lot of research? It seems hard.
I mean, probably it's going to be difficult. My poor, like, marketing and publicity team, because, like, I feel like you have, like, a really good, solid brand, and it's all these really, like, twisty thrillers with like death, and like I'm obsessed.
Art and death.
Art and death. But for me, it's like I have paranormal romance. I had a fairy tale retelling, and then I have like a high-ish, an alternate Earth fantasy, let's call it, and then sci-fi. So it's like, how does anyone market what?
And then the
rom-com
brand is later,
and then a rom-com. Like, I'm all over the place. So it's probably going to be difficult, yes. But I'm really excited about it.
I wonder, tell me if you think this, I was just thinking about this, like, You know, in the bookstore, YA, it's not as like separated into sections as it is an adult, where you have like, you know, and I wonder if that makes it easier for YA authors to like genre bend a little bit. I don't know. What do you think? I wonder.
That's a good question. I go to bookstores all the time. Not really. I go to bookstores. And half the time Cemetery Boys is in fiction, YA fiction, and half the time it's in YA fantasy. That's like really the only differentiation when it comes to young adult. So I have no idea. I don't even know if these two are like shelved next to each other. Maybe.
Interesting.
I've only been able to go to Powell's so far. So
I love Powell's. Such a great bookstore. Yeah.
So we've got about 15 minutes left.
Yeah.
Do you want
questions?
Why don't you pick out one that you want to answer? We're just gonna look at the questions y'all sent.
I'll do the top one. We'll just go down. One of the things that strikes me about She's Too Pretty to Burn is how visual it is. What helps you with describing unique events, people, and sensations? I like that because I have a degree in art. I'm an artist. Well, I haven't done it in a long time, but I do like visual settings. I like those really visual like set pieces. I don't know why, but I feel real bored writing about scenes that are in like, I don't know, like room after room after room. Like I really like to change it up. Like if you're in a room in this scene, I'll try to put you in like a big outdoor scene, you know, next scene. And then if you're coming in from outdoors, I'll try to put in like a claustrophobic little area. So, but also it was Dorian Gray and I wanted it to be visual, you know, I mean, it was an art book. So I really tried to kind of go all out.
Okay. I think this is a good one. So I'm going to ask this one next.
Okay, tell me.
How did the Dorian Gray character change when you made her female?
Oh God, that's a good question. Actually, I talked to my agent a lot about this because Dorian Gray is like a narcissistic little jerk. You know what I mean? And we were really concerned about making that a teenage girl for like a lot of the reasons like teenage girls get cast in that role. You know, if you post selfies, if you're feeling yourself and you look, you know, and you're dressing up and you're, you know, then you're like conceited. But if you do this, then you're frumpy. You know, it's like there's no right way to be as a teenage girl with your self-image. And so it was really important to me that like I changed the character of Dorian Gray quite a bit actually, just to make it so I tried to make it less about like, I'm a jerk for enjoying this attention and I'm this vain character, as opposed to like the dark side of being a muse. Like, what does it mean to be like the object, the subject, like, and the lack of agency? Like, what does that do to you psychologically? So I kind of tried to explore like, what would that do to you, as opposed to like, I'm this little kind of jerk who loves this attention, you know?
Yeah. And I love that. That's, yeah. Okay, this one's really good too. Do you have your twist or reveals planned before you draft, or is that something that happens organically while you draft?
You should answer this one too, because you have twists and reveals in both your books too. And I think we know for you have it master planned on page 32 of the outline.
Right. I do like have it outlined, but I am so bad at writing endings to books, and I'm also very bad at twists and reveals. It's like it's like an inside joke between me and my friends, and I talk about it on the internet too, is that I never guess the endings to books or movies like ever. When I read your book, Hunting Annabelle, I had no idea what was happening the entire time.
I remember us talking about this back then.
I was losing my mind. It was so cool. That. Yeah, I think I was texting you and I was like, oh my God. I think I was like texting you pictures of like what I was reading at the moment.
I remember that.
So for me, planning out twists and reveals is a very laborious, painful process because I'm not very good at them to begin with. And then, you know, you want to have a really satisfying ending, and I always struggle with that. So I think
your readers would say that you do a good job, honestly.
Well, that's because I agonize over it for like, you know, months on months trying to make it better and making sure that it ends well. Yeah. What about you?
I think I know what the twists are going to be, right? Like I know what the midpoint twist is going to be, but I saw a really interesting thing on Twitter, and maybe one of my writer friends who's in here can remember in the chat who said this, but they said it's important to remember the difference between a reveal and a twist. A reveal is something that you gave clues to. Like the reader might be able to pick this up along the way. That's on purpose. Like it's a detective thing and they could have picked it up. But a twist is something the reader really shouldn't have seen coming. And I think it was Amy Suter Clark. I think you're right, Lane. And I thought that was a really important distinction because sometimes people feel like a little bit gypped because they're like, the twist in this book, I saw it coming. And it's like, well, no, that was like, I gave clues. I was hoping you would see that one coming because it was supposed to make sense in the context of the story. Like you were building up to this. It wasn't like something that was like a left turn out of nowhere. So I try to like really think about that. Like, what do I want to feel like a natural, this is where the story was always going. I just didn't think she'd actually go all the way there. Like there's that type of reveal where it's like, it makes sense now that we're here, but I really didn't think we'd go all the way here. Like I thought we'd get to the doorway. I didn't think we'd go all the way into this room kind of a feeling. But then a twist, I don't know, twists are much harder. Twists are like, they can feel really jarring and like they don't make any sense. And so I don't know, twists are much more difficult, I think, personally.
Yeah. I also didn't realize that there was a difference between the two. So now
I never really consciously realized it, but isn't that such a cool way to put that?
Yeah, totally. And that makes a lot of sense, actually. So I feel like I'm learning something new that can help inform my writing.
Like the classic Gone Girl twist, like the midpoint of Gone Girl, where like you realize they lied to you through the whole first half. You could never have seen that coming.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I was like, thank you.
Yeah, that story blew my mind. Okay, this is I really like this one. Do you have a favorite adaptation of a literary classic?
Do you have one at hand? Because I have one near me.
I always have one at hand, like literally always.
Should we show one that we have?
Okay, hold on.
Okay.
Mine's a fairy tale, which I'm going to consider a literary classic. So
absolutely. Yeah. I don't know if mine's a literary classic, but it's close enough.
Okay, ready?
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Oh yeah. That's an Tell about His Hideous Heart, because that's a fantastic one.
This is a collection of Edgar Allan Poe short story retellings, and they're amazing. All different authors. It's a great collection. Okay, tell us about yours.
Killer authors in that.
There are
anthology. Okay. It's mind blowing.
Yes, there are like the best of the best. It's like fantasy football or something over here.
Yeah, totally. And then this is Cinderella is Dead by Kalyn Barron, and it's so good. It's a really cool, a very dark and twisty. So I feel like it's kind of in conversation with Lost in Neverwoods of the like classic Cinderella, which is really good. And then the second book is coming
you have
out.
number 2?
This I do have an arc of, which is The Poison Heart. And like, just look at how stunning.
At that cover. I know.
Kalyn has the best covers, like hands down. They're gorgeous.
Those are gorgeous covers.
So those are definitely 2 of my favorites. Okay, I'm dipping back in to the questions. Okay, actually, this is an alignment. You both have beautiful book covers. Do you have any say in what the cover would look like? That is always the question, isn't it? I'm gonna let you answer first.
It's funny. So like I had at one time someone told me, why don't you design your own covers? Just tell them you have an art degree. And I was like, no, please. First of all, no. But second of all, no. So these are covers. Like I put them together. They're very pretty. Cool. Like they usually send us a comp. Like they'll send us like a sketch or some kind of an early draft of the book cover and say like, we have some ideas. Or with Pretty to Burn, they actually sent me a few and they were like, we have some directions. What do you think? Like sometimes they'll do that, but like they will pick the final cover, you know what I mean? And so you do have to kind of trust your publisher to know it's not just what you like, it's a packaging that is going to communicate to the reader what genre it is, you know, who is it for. And so I am not a sales expert or marketing expert. So
yeah, and I think that's a really good point that people maybe even authors don't necessarily realize is that like, you know, what's pretty and what represents your book. Yes, but you don't know all of the like marketing tactics behind it. Like you said, conveying like the tone and the genre and all that other kind of stuff. It's very complicated. So
yeah,
you know,
and those teams like and they see all the covers that are coming. Like they don't just see what's out on the shelf. They are behind the scenes seeing all the comps that are coming out. So they're trying to place your book in like the right place on the shelf with all these other things coming out.
Yeah. And for Lost in the Neverwoods, I freaking love this cover.
I love it.
The first sketches that I got were very different. They kind of looked like a classic, like if you thought of the original like Peter Pan or Peter and Wendy sketches, it was very much like that. It was much more sketchy and kind of folklorish. But it always had the silhouettes in the trees, which has always been my favorite part. And they, when we were getting closer to release time, they switched the artist over to Loika, who did this cover. And I swear to God, it's like they were scrolling through my Twitter being like, what's Aiden's favorite colors? And like, what's Aiden's vibes? Because like pinks, blues, and purples are my favorite. And I love how dark and twisty this is. And it's the coolest thing ever. I love like getting
did a great job.
Maybe one of the best parts about
me too. I agree.
Yeah,
the covers
totally.
are some of the best part. And like, I really like the fact that when they did this, that she's kind of like peeking through the letters. And on the paperback, she's actually even looking through the letters, like her eyes are kind of here on the paperback. They kind of zoomed her in a little bit. So I'm really excited. I think I have to stop telling like my cover designer and illustrator on social media how much I like it, because they're going to have to file a restraining order. I love them too much.
I feel like that's with me and Mars, who I'm just like always talking about them. I'm obsessed. It's bad.
Mars is amazing. Mars is so talented.
Mars did your character art for your pre-order campaign.
They did.
It was stunning. It was so cool.
Stunning. Yeah,
loved it.
They're so talented.
So I think we have like 5 minutes left. Do you want to do another question? Do you want to talk about upcoming reads? What do you feel?
Upcoming reads.
All right.
I've got one here that I'm really excited about.
Okay, yes. Tell me.
This is Between Perfect and Real.
Yes.
By our friend Ray. That you don't have. I have this and you don't have this.
I don't. I know. I'm very jealous.
It's like, you should never tell me that, because I'm just going to torture you about it now. Can I read the little back thingy? It's only a paragraph, so that we can. Okay. Dean Foster knows he's a trans guy. He's watched enough YouTube videos and done enough questioning to be sure, but everyone at his high school thinks he's a lesbian, including his girlfriend Zoe and his theater director, who just cast him as a non-traditional Romeo. He wonders if maybe it would be easier to wait until college to come out. But as he plays Romeo every day in rehearsals, Dean realizes he wants everyone to see him as he really is now, not just on the stage, but everywhere in his life. Dean knows what he needs to do. Can playing a role help Dean be his true self? And it's that like finding yourself through your art and like the journey. I love it. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm literally so jealous. I am so excited.
And Ray's such a lovely person. And so this is just going to be, I'm so excited. Yeah, it's going to be great.
Ray's awesome.
Yeah.
So I've read a lot of ARCs recently, but they've all been digital. So I don't have anything like pretty to hold up. But the most recent one, it's not the most recent one, but it's the one that I've suddenly become desperately obsessed with, is 1,500 Miles from the Sun by Johnny Garzavia. And it's a very sweet, fun, like rom-com about a gay boy living in LA who accidentally outs himself when he gets drunk and posts on Twitter, which I feel like is very relatable.
Very relatable.
And it's so good. He lives in Texas, and the boy who, like, after he comes out on Twitter, like slides into his DMs, and he lives in California, in LA. So it's so good. It's so sweet, and it's so funny. And Johnny is such a talented writer for romance and for comedy. So I super recommend that one.
I was trying to find it on the Vroman site, but I don't see it yet. When's it come out? Do you know?
It's on Goodreads.
Okay.
I don't know when it comes out, actually. It comes out in, I want to say, this summer, definitely. I just can't remember the specific date.
I'm like, I can't even remember my own release date. Why am I expecting you to remember this?
Wait, do I have it written
That
down?
sounds great, though. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm so
I've been hearing a lot of buzz about that book, actually. Like, everyone who reads it goes on Twitter and shouts about it a ton.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I think it's June. Yeah, everyone's saying June. I was going to guess June, so I'm
okay.
saying it's June.
I have an adult book that's coming out that I'm excited about. And I know that there's a lot of adult readers in the chat, so I might as well show this one too. This one's called Bathhouse by PJ Vernon. And this is about, it's like an idyllic young gay married couple, and one of them goes to a bathhouse and it turns murdery, and he has to keep this indiscretion from his husband. And just the writing in this book is it's so like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like so tense and so ramped up and so terse that I'm just like, honestly, I'm so jealous of his writing. It's so good. So I really recommend that book. And I think it comes out in June. Yeah.
And the cover is so cool on that book.
So it's a man leaning his head back, and you can't, you have to kind of look for a second, and then it's got this like X, and it's just, yes, so fiery. Love it.
Yes. Yeah. So good. I'm very excited for that one now too.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think
are we good? Are we done?
About at time.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to wrap it with new releases that you guys are excited about. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Aiden. That was like such a fun talk. And thank you to everyone who tuned in and sent in your questions and was active in the chat. Again, if you would like to purchase a copy of tonight's featured book, She's Too Pretty to Burn, just click on the green purchase button below. We also have Aiden's books listed on that page, so go right ahead and visit that page by clicking on the purchase button. And for those who tuned in late, don't worry, a replay will be available very shortly after the broadcast ends. Just use the same stream link and you'll be able to rewatch the talk from the beginning. And I think that about covers it. Thank you guys again. Stay safe and have a good evening, everyone. Okay.
Thank you so much for having us.
Aiden, thank you for doing this. Thank you for...
Of course, an absolute pleasure.
This event with me. So good to see you.